right, welcome everybody to the Get to Know the Healthy Creeks Initiative online information session. My name is Daniel Oppenheimer. I'm the land program manager at a nonprofit called the Hill Country Alliance, and we really appreciate your joining us this afternoon to learn about this collaborative effort. So today we're here to talk about the Healthy Creeks Initiative. And when we think about creek health, there's often a tendency to look down into the creek itself. Is there water in there? If so, how much? What does it look like? But really what we want to encourage today is to step back and understand and appreciate that there's a much larger system that nurtures and sustains our hill country creeks and rivers, whether they flow seasonally, as you see on the left, or flow year-round, as you see on the right. And one of the key pieces of this broader system is called the Riparian Area. Riparian is not a word you hear in Texas very often, and so it begs the question, what is it? What does it mean? Well, a riparian area is simply the transition zone between that channel of the creek or the river and the drier uplands. So it's that typically wetter area adjacent to our creeks and rivers and even lakes. And they're pretty narrow, they're pretty small. They only, across the hill country make up about 2 to 3% of the landscape. And so you might wonder, well, gosh, if that's such a small part of the landscape, why are we here talking about it? Well, even though they're small in terms of their spatial representation, they provide a tremendous amount of value to people, to wildlife, to agriculture, to communities. They do some remarkable things. So why do they matter? Well, when these areas, these riparian zones along creeks and rivers feature a diversity and abundance of plant species, they act like a sponge. And so they can slow and sink water, which does a number of things, including mitigate floods, absorb water and recharge our underground groundwater resources. They can filter pollutants to improve water quality. They provide wildlife habitat. They do a number of things when they are healthy and functioning with that diversity of native plant species. But again, they can only do all those things when they are healthy. And there are a number of ways over the generations and in recent years that we have degraded some of these riparian systems along our creeks and rivers. But the good news is that with time and patience and good land stewardship, we often see that these are really resilient systems that can bounce back. And so today we're going to hear from Angela England with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, who's going to talk about one of those stressors that has degraded our riparian areas. Invasive plants, and not just any non-native invasive plant, but Arundo Donax. And she's going to talk to us about how a number of partners have come together and reached out to hundreds of landowners to help recover these riparian systems that in turn help nurture and sustain our healthy hill country creeks and rivers. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Angela, the floor is yours.
All right. Let me set up my screen sharing. How's that look?
Beautiful.
Great. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today to learn about how Healthy Creeks Initiative is working to manage Arundo in the Texas Hill Country. I'm Angela England of the Inland Fisheries Division of Texas Parks and Wildlife. And we've got a bunch of different folks from our different partner agencies who are helping make this project go. And so I'd like to do introductions on those. Let's have Ryan McGillicuddy. Unmute, Ryan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for your patience while I unmuted. My name is Ryan McGillicuddy. I'm the Watershed Conservation Team Leader at Texas Parks and Wildlife with the Inland Fisheries Division. I'm on the same team as Angela England. Typically in the past, I've coordinated surveys for the Blanco Watershed. So I've been the point of contact for individuals in that watershed that are seeking to partner with us on Arundo management. So that's primarily in Hayes and Blanco counties. Extending a little bit into Kamal in some of the areas of the Little Blanco, but primarily that area. I'm seeking to hire another 2 interns to help this summer that might be placed in a number of these different watersheds to be determined. And as well, another aquatic invasive species biologist to work with Angela England. So there'll be other personnel from Parks and Wildlife that you're not introduced to today that you may end up seeing out there in the field as we undertake this field effort this summer. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me. I'll turn it over back to you, Angela.
All right, let's hear from Levi.
Yes, so my name is Levi Sparks. I'm the aquatic ecologist for the Bandera County River Authority and Groundwater District. We predominantly work in the Upper Medina watershed, but we have been involved with the Upper Sabinal River Basin and Arundo management in the past. Been doing it for a few years and looking forward to continue the process.
Great. How about Travis?
Hi, my name is Travis Linscomb, and I'm with the Upper Guadalupe River Authority, and I'll be coordinating surveys for the Upper Guadalupe River Watershed in Kerr County. And I've enjoyed working with everyone on this project and look forward to adding more landowners in the future.
Great. And Philip?
Hello, my name is Philip Quest. I'm the watershed coordinator for the city of New Braunfels, and I will be coordinating the surveys for the Guadalupe Basin, I guess below Canyon Lake, and the Kamal River in the city of New Braunfels. And I believe this is our 4th season, going into our 4th season, being involved with the Healthy Creeks Initiative program.
Great. And Linda? You're on mute.
I'm Linda Fawcett with the Llano River Watershed Alliance, and we take care of, or try to take care of, the Llano River south and Maine and north. And we've been in this for a couple of years now, to my knowledge.
Great. And Daniela?
Hey everyone, I'm super excited to be here. I am Daniela Mejia. I'm with the Water Oriented Recreation District of Comal County. We will be coordinating surveys on 30 miles of the Guadalupe River, above the dam and below the dam. And I was able to work on this a little bit last summer, but I'm excited to go deep into it this summer.
Great. All right, I think that's all of us. Let me think. Yeah, I think I got us all. Good. All right. So broad collaboration. We definitely depend on all of our partners to help make this go. So Arundo Donax, otherwise known as giant reed, is a member of the grass family. It grows up to 30 feet tall. And although it does form large seed heads in the fall, those seeds are not considered to be fertile. Instead, this plant establishes in new areas when fragments of the stalk spread downstream, or when rhizomes, the underground stems, are carried downstream, or deposited in moist areas by mowers or dozers or what have you. Arundo does form dense cane thickets, and they crowd out pretty much everything else in their area. They've evolved in synchrony with native insects, birds, fish, and other wildlife that depend on native plants. Arundo thickets will also block access for recreation, bank fishing, and views of the water. Arundo traps sediment, which worsens nearby flooding, and it crowds into waterways, causing channelization and reducing in-stream habitat diversity that fish need. It also has poor value for native wildlife and does commonly harbor other invasive species, such as feral hogs. It also sends long straw-like roots down into the water table to pull up water into the rapidly growing stalks and leaves. Those stalks can grow 4 inches a day, so it takes a lot of water. And when it's pulled up out of the water table and out of the creek, it's lost to the atmosphere and no longer is available for the creek. Large infestations use so much water that it reduces the amount of water flowing downstream. And the roots will do very little to hold water in place, resulting in erosion. And when even small amounts of flood water can scour away beneath the soil. These plants are extremely flammable, worsening the risk of wildfire, which can then jump past riparian areas that normally would act as a fire break. However, fire doesn't kill it. So burned arundo will actually grow back faster than the native plants do. This is another instance of its ability to thrive under disturbance. And I don't know about you, but I don't want that next to my house. Look at that. That's really scary. So how can we manage this problem species? The principles of integrated pest management tell us to consider all of our options for controlling it. Biological methods, such as this tiny stingless wasp, have had minimal impact so far. And although you can pull up small fragments, if you get to them before they establish, mechanical methods such as dozing or mowing usually just make the problem worse by spreading fragments of the cane or rhizome that can form new colonies if they end up anywhere moist. So preventing the spread is crucial. Here you can see where somebody has probably planted this arundo next to their house on a fence line, and where it's subsequently spread up and down, both by creeping expansion, but also by mowing. So we want you to stop that. We want you to make sure you tell your neighbors to not mow. The Healthy Creeks Initiative was formed in 2016 as a partnership to improve overall creek health. We want to educate and empower landowners on best management practices for riparian areas. We manage arundo on cooperating landowner properties to reduce its impacts. We also give advice and may help with seeding, planting, or other restoration activities. And we're evaluating the status of other invasive plants to guide future efforts. So far, herbicide has proven to be the most effective control method with the least environmental impact. We only use herbicides that are labeled for use in aquatic sites and apply spot treatments directly to the foliage while taking care to avoid spraying natives whenever we can. We're working on the properties of willing landowners, and our surveyors will locate and map all the arundo and other invasive species with annual resurveys to assess management progress. Surveys typically will begin in May or June, and we move from upstream to downstream within each watershed as we're doing these surveys. Once the arundo is mapped on a property, we then send the team of experienced professional insured contract applicators to spray the arundo, all at no cost to the landowners. So what does it look like after the arundo has been treated? The top photo shows a thriving stand of arundo. About 3 to 4 weeks after, the plants will start turning brown from the bottom up. And then after a few months, almost all of the stalks will look brown. Here's a close-up of what it looks like about a month or so after spraying. Excuse me, these photos were taken at our demonstration area in Franson Park in Fredericksburg. On the left, you can see before the treatments, the arundo was accumulating sediments, narrowing the channel, and altering the stream flow. But after the annual treatments, the arundo has thinned out, and we've got this patch at least under control. There's still a couple of patches hanging on. And the native plants are moving back in, and they're looking great. The riparian function is really resuming nicely. Now the canes, here's before again on the top. After one treatment, they'll look a little bit dry mostly. After about 3 or 4 treatments, many of them will be starting to fall. and decay and degrade. Now, of course, bigger patches do take multiple years to kill all the growing nodes, especially these bigger areas where it's hard to get enough chemical into the middle until some of the outer canes die back a bit. Landowners are encouraged to leave canes standing. Otherwise, the disturbance can cause dormant nodes on these rhizomes and even on the canes to re-sprout. That down material laying around might look a little bit messy, but those are serving as protection for the native baby plants to keep them protected from hungry deer and other things that want to eat them. Now, if those standing plants are disturbed by mowing or cutting, we often see these sprouts coming right back. And I think of them as zombie plants that if you don't wake them up, maybe they will go ahead and die. But they just love disturbance, and the disturbance wakes them up and they resume growth. Now, once the stalks fall over and aren't attached anymore, if they're showing signs that they're rotting and decomposing, then those can be removed if those are looking too messy for you. But once again, we'd love to have them there to kind of protect the baby plants and so forth. So how's our progress looking? At last count, the Healthy Creeks Initiative currently includes over 360 landowners in 7 counties and 5 watersheds. The darker areas on this map are where we currently have active management underway. Lighter areas are where we're set to expand in 2022 if willing landowners come forward. We rely on our various partners for boots on the ground surveys in these different watersheds: Bandera County River Authority and Groundwater District, City of New Braunfels, Hill Country Alliance, Llano River Watershed Alliance, the Nature Conservancy, Upper Guadalupe River Authority, and the Water-Oriented Recreation District of Comal County. We've all been working with, and we're super happy to continue. So a little bit of quick history while we zoom in on each of these. The groundwork for the Healthy Creeks Initiative was laid in the Pedernales Basin in 2015 with a small pilot project in and around Franson Park in Fredericksburg. We launched the formal Healthy Creeks Initiative in 2016, and we've got over 109 landowners. The surveys in the Pedernales are by Texas Parks and Wildlife, Texas State Parks folks from TPWD, and from Hill Country Alliance. We also work in the watershed of Blanco, which also came on board in 2016. And that was well timed to coincide with the restoration efforts following the epic 2015 flooding in that region. Now, surveys here are by inland fisheries staff from TPWD with TPWD State Parks Division and the Nature Conservancy. So pretty soon, folks in other areas started hearing about the project and wanted to join in. TPWD staff were stretched thin enough, we couldn't take it on ourselves, but the other folks came on board. So in 2018, Bandera County River Authority and Groundwater District started coordinating surveys in the Upper Medina watershed with occasional help from the Nature Conservancy. The Upper Guadalupe River Authority also entered in 2018. 2019, Water-Oriented Recreation District, or WORD, of Comal County, and the City of New Braunfels stepped forward to do surveys in Comal County, allowing us to expand further downstream on the Guadalupe River. Now, yes, we don't have those two connected. We don't currently have an active partner to handle the surveys in between yet. Maybe one of these years we'll be able to do that, and we're hoping to do that before too long. We'll see. In 2018 and 19, TPWD staff treated Arundo at the South Llano River State Park and at Texas Tech University's Field Station in Junction. But then in 2020, the Llano River Watershed Alliance stepped forward to take on surveys of the rest of the watershed, allowing us to expand HCI to landowners all through the upper Llano Basin. So how's it going? Here's on the top is a graph showing how many landowners we've got in each of the areas and when each of those new areas came on board. And yes, the pandemic did slow us down a little bit, but by the end of 2021, we've got a total of 47 acres of Arundo under management. And when I say under management, those are being treated or appear fully dead. So that's a huge amount when you're looking at how much water those are taking out of the creeks. So I want to leave you with one more comparison. Here you see two neighboring properties that are separated by a creek. The one on the left has been treated twice, and the one on the right has never been treated. So on the bottom, so this is the second year after the second year of spraying, it's in the fall, and then the following spring before we came back and sprayed again. There are some little sprouts that still are going to need retreatment, and we're going to continue monitoring, and we'll go back and survey every year and bring back those sprayers every year until hopefully we can get it all. But realistically, unless we can get cooperation from folks on both sides of the creek, this is going to continue to be problematic. So we really need that cooperation. We really want your help with bringing in your neighbors and new landowners. This is a totally voluntary program, but it's at no cost. So, so whether you have property with Arundo or you're luckily free of Arundo, there are ways you can help promote creek health. Please talk with your neighbors about ways to support healthy streamside management. Consider expanding the riparian buffer alongside your creeks. The wider it is, the more benefits it will provide to you and the ecosystem. Plant native seeds, shrubs, and trees to stabilize the soil and provide food and habitat for native insects, fish, birds, and other wildlife. So that wraps up this part of the presentation. I didn't include everybody's contact information on this slide because we want you to make sure you've always got the most recent and current set of folks. So if you go to our website here at tpwd.texas.gov/healthy-creeks, you can always find the most recent, the most current set of contacts for your area. Or if you want to just email us at healthycreeks@tpwd.texas.gov, we can send you to them. So I believe we can take any questions now.
All right, so yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to either enter them into the chat feature or just blurt it out. I have one for you, Angela. You mentioned towards the beginning of your presentation that after multiple years of treatment in some areas, you're starting to see native plants starting to reestablish amid some of those desiccating Arundo stocks. What are some of the types of plants that y'all are finding in terms of native species?
The stuff that's coming in tends to be the stuff that's growing nearby. So anytime there's a good array of native trees, mostly what we're seeing tend to be tree saplings, seedlings. We're seeing lots of pecan, cottonwood, box elder, soapberry. There's some neat stuff coming in when it's in areas that have good native plants nearby. Sometimes we're seeing China berries come in. Haven't seen much in the way of privet, which is good. Some areas do have a lot though, so we're watching those. We're also seeing some of the fast growing, what we call pioneer species that are really good at moving in and getting started. Some of the other ones take a little bit longer to establish. And so, you know, when we are out visiting properties, if we see that there's rain in the forecast and there's a likelihood that maybe putting some seed down would help and maybe kind of get into the soil, then we do sometimes put a mixture of native seeds in there. Those we get from a local vendor who provides a mix of native riparian grasses, sedges, maybe not sedges, I can't remember, wildflowers, shrubs, and trees. And so, we're seeing some nice stuff come in. Sometimes it goes through a little scruffy phase where there's some thistle and stuff like that that's not as native. But after a couple of years, usually those kind of go away and the more of the native stuff comes in.
Thanks. We got a question about, will this presentation be available? Yes, assuming the technology is working with us this afternoon. In theory, we are recording this information session. We'll then convert it into a YouTube video, and all our partners will be sharing the video with their respective landowner networks. So yes, fingers crossed the technology on Zoom is working, and we will get this resource out to y'all, and we hope you'll share it with friends and neighbors. And then we got a question, Angela. We understand the Healthy Creeks Initiative is focused on Arundo or giant cane. You talked about a few other invasive species like privet and Chinaberry. Why is the Healthy Creeks Initiative just focused on Arundo right now and not other species, say like the Chinaberry?
We had to start somewhere, and it's a big task. We started with this species in the hill country in specific because we are doing a bunch of habitat, not necessarily restoration, but preservation work to benefit the state, the state fish, which is Guadalupe bass. And we're doing a lot of work with those pristine streams in the hill country headwaters. And in those areas, Arundo was considered to be one of the bigger threats. Partly that's because Arundo uses so much water, and it seems to degrade the in-stream habitat that the fish need. They're eating little native insects that grow in tree roots and stuff like that grow into the creeks. And when these Arundo stands are crowding out the native veg, then the insect biodiversity in those areas is very low, and the fish don't have as much good quality food to eat. And so that's kind of what got us started in this area on this species. We are monitoring a bunch of the other species and trying to figure out if there are other ones that we are especially worried about. And so that's why we're mapping those species on your properties as we go, just to try to figure out, okay, is bamboo a big problem in the creeks in all of these areas, or is XYZ? There's so many different ones. And so we're looking at it, and we're going to have to think carefully if we add any, because if we spread ourselves too thinly, then we might not be able to make as much of a difference overall.
Hi, Angela. Quick question. Luke at Bandera County River Authority. I went out with Clinton Levi last year, and we walked past several other invasives, and it wasn't yet on the field maps. Is there any plan to add those to the field map so we can at least start a survey and look at what other things might be out there?
Yeah, we totally can. I'm definitely focusing on the ones that are riparian invasives. There's a lot of plants that are more upland species that do show up in our areas near the creeks. And so I'm not going to necessarily add those, but yeah, definitely looking to see if you've got something you're worried about. We're gonna try to figure out what we can do to help monitor that and see if we can take on new stuff in the future.
Cool, thank you.
Also, another reason we aren't doing ligustrum right now, ligustrum and Chinaberry are two ones that we kind of think, yeah, those are in pretty widespread areas and so forth. How to treat brush and trees shrubs is totally different than how you treat grasses like this, even if it's a giant grass. It's a different set of chemicals. It's a different set of methods of herbicide application. And so it would be a totally different project that we would have to start anew if we were going to do tree management and brush management. And so that's something that we will consider. And we look at that every year and try to figure out, is this the year that we take on something new? Partly we want to be able to use the same set of chemicals and the same methods that we're using now, and just add on a little bit extra for the sprayers to do, as opposed to starting a whole new project. And that's why we haven't gone to China Berry and ligustrum and so forth so far.
For this next question, Angela, that's in the chat, you may want to pull up your slide again with the contact information in the website. The question is, I am on the North Llano. How do I become involved and/or get someone to come look at my area on the river to see if there are invasives that need to be addressed?
All right, you should be able to see my screen. You can either email us at healthycreeks@tpwd.texas.gov or go visit our website at TPWD, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, tpwd.texas.gov/healthycreeks. And either of those will get you in touch. That would be the Llano River Watershed Alliance that's going to be doing those surveys. And Linda and Scott and Andrew and whomever else they've got working on it this year, they're going to be happy to work with you. Linda, do you want to say something?
I'm typing him a message right now.
Awesome. Excellent. Excellent. Y'all are probably neighbors.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yay.
And I just do want to reiterate that it is important that they go ahead and contact, the Healthy Creeks at tpwd.texas.gov email address as well, just so we'll have the correct forms on file and everything. But ultimately, the people that will be conducting the surveys are the Llano River Watershed Alliance. They'll be your point of contact for the field after we get you set up in our system.
Yep. And we aren't going to be starting the surveys for a few weeks yet. Still getting everything up and running so that we can do all our mapping this year. We've got updated information on property ownership that we're incorporating into all the maps. And so that takes a little bit of time getting it right. And realistically, the plants are still going to be there. They're not going to evaporate if we push it back a couple of weeks. I promise they'll still be there. And some of them really kind of get a slow start. If you've had treatment on your property before and you go out and look right now or in May, you may not see anything growing, but then later in the summer, there may be some that pop up. And so pushing the surveys back a little bit later is not a bad thing. We do expect to have the sprayers start either late June or probably the last week of June or maybe the first week of July, weather permitting. And then they will run into usually early October, sometimes late October, just depending on the weather.
Any other questions for Angela or our other local partners who comprise the Healthy Creeks Initiative?
Daniel, I did see one in the chat that wasn't addressed, and it was just wondering if GBRA or another partner has been contacted to discuss the potential of expanding that gap in the Guadalupe River area in the Kendall County region. I do have plans to initiate discussions with Nathan Pence and Chad Norris, and as well as some of our contacts at the county to discuss potential future partnerships. But it's a little bit farther afield from now, potentially next year if we can find a willing partner. But we're pretty much at capacity this year with staffing shortages and existing commitments, but we do hope to tackle that area in the future. So thanks for asking, Mark.
All All right, if folks aren't asking questions, would you mind muting yourself? We're getting a little bit of background noise. Any other questions for Angela or our partners of the Healthy Creeks Initiative? Well, again, thanks everybody for your time. Angela, thanks for your presentation. To all the local partners, to work across this many watersheds with over 300 landowners takes a tremendous amount of coordination and collaboration. So want to thank everyone who could join us, especially all the partners who make themselves available to support landowners, to control Arundo and improve our riparian systems and ultimately our healthy hill country creeks. We hope to get this video out to y'all soon in the coming weeks. If you have any questions in the meantime, Healthy Creeks at tpwd.texas.gov is a good place to start. Hope y'all have a great afternoon. Again, thanks for your stewardship and for joining us today.